Monday, October 9th, Columbus Day. I'm going to tell you my favorite story about Christopher Columbus. On January 9th, 1943, Christopher Columbus, sailing near what is now the Dominican Republic, saw 3 mermaids and wrote it down in his journal. In the future, they were said to be manatees, but this is not what he said. It's just what lesser humans that can't understand and accept the reality that there are other creatures besides humans. That's how they justify it. Manatees. But manatees do not look like what was described. And he describes them as half-human, just as they're painted. Circa 1451-1506, 6 months earlier to him writing in his journal about seeing these 3 mermaids, he set off from Spain across the Atlantic Ocean with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, was hoping to find a western trade route that would lead him to Asia. Instead, his voyage, the first of the 4 he would end up making, led him to the Americas, or what is better known as the New World. Mermaids, half female, half-fish creatures, have existed in seafaring cultures, even way before ancient Greece. They are typically depicted as having a woman's head and torso, with the lower extremity of a fish tail, and in some accounts, even a serpent tail. This is the goddess Yemaya, the queen of mermaids, and we're going to talk about her in the next video. Now let's get back to Columbus and what he saw. Mermaids live in the ocean, but according to some legends, they can take mortal shape and marry human men. Mermaids are closely linked to sirens, but sirens are another mythological creature, all in per se. Another folklore legend, similar to mermaids, is that of a half-woman and half-bird creature who live on islands and sing seductive songs to lure sailors into their death. There are hundreds of sightings by sailors in the time of Christopher Columbus that did not see them as folklore and mythological creatures, but as real living beings, so much so that they were depicted in ancient maps that would show exactly the locations where you would see mermaids. Only in modern times have the stories about mermaids become a fantasy, a fiction, because up until not long ago, they were known to be true and real existing creatures. So back to Columbus. On his second voyage, he noticed some creatures that were very odd. And they were so odd that he took the time to write about them in his journal. He says, and I quote, "I saw very strange creatures today, similar to what I previously saw in the coast of West Africa. And these new mermaids he sees, and he describes them as not as pretty as the first ones he saw." So right now, he is talking about 2 different species of mermaids. And then he specifically writes, although they weren't as pretty as the first, they did have a human appearance in the face. These did not have the long, beautiful hair. Then he goes on to describe on how they elevated themselves above the surface of the water. While the notes about the first sighting that were on the coast of West Africa, which coincides with other sailors and their reports on them in the same locations, he describes them as beautiful women with beautiful voices and long flowing hair and fishtails. He describes their skin as being a pale white blue, human looking, but not human. So thank you, Christopher Columbus, for telling us about mermaids. Stay tuned for more, because now I'm going to tell you about the Queen of Mermaids, the goddess Yemaya.